Welcome to the American Conservation Experience podcast. Get ready to meet the inspiring individuals who are the driving force of conservation projects across the country. From the towering peaks of our national parks to the vital ecosystems of our wildlife refuges and beyond, we'll introduce you to the dedicated people who are making a tangible difference. Join us as we shine a light on the often unsung heroes who build and maintain our trails, revitalize crucial habitats, and so much more, all powered by the energy and commitment of thousands of young adults. So let's dive in and explore the world of conservation together. Thanks for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us on this episode of American Conservation Experience. My name is Elyse Cogburn, and I'm one of your hosts. Today, we're talking with two staff members here at ACE that help run our crew program. This episode is part 2 to an episode we had earlier in the season where we had a chance to talk with 2 crew alumni members. But today we are talking with ACE staff who actually lead those members currently in our crew program. Today I'm joined by Jordy Ray, who is a crew leader turned project manager at our Asheville branch, and Lily Sporleader, who is a crew leader in our Pacific West branch. Jordy and Lily, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Elyse.
And you might hear a familiar voice chiming in once or twice along this episode. I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Dave Bastian, who actually got his career started on conservation crews. Hi, Dave. How are you today?
Doing great. It's great to be here talking about one of my favorite subjects.
Awesome. Before we dive into the conversation with Lily and Jordy, what is crew? What is a conservation crew? What is it all about? Well, in short, conservation crews are kind of the boots on the ground. They generally have a schedule of 8 days on, 6 days off, where they're spending all of those 8 days out in forest land, national park lands, Bureau of Land Management lands, also state and local county lands, doing conservation work. What is that conservation work? Building trails, building rock walls, helping with ecology and invasive species management. They also do seed collecting programs. There's a lot to conservation crews that I think folks don't know about. So I'm really excited to have 2 staff members here at ACE who live and breathe this stuff every single day. So as we dive in, I want to know first how both of you got involved in conservation. Let's start with Lily. How did you get involved with ACE?
I applied to join ACE as a crew member in 2023, and I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I was in school at the time, but I was honestly scared to have a career. I didn't feel like I was ready to get a degree and then go into the workforce. So I just kind of applied to ACE on a whim. I was like, I want to travel and see a new place and have a new experience. So I honestly had no idea what I was going to be doing. I was thinking I would be working on trails, but I had no idea what that meant. People would ask me, what are you going to be doing? I was like, I don't know. I'm going to go and see what happens. And so I started off as a member, and I was a member for 6 months and then became ATL, an assistant team lead. And then after maybe 3 months of that, I applied to be a crew lead. And so I've been a crew lead for over a year now. And as time has gone on, I've gotten more in touch with the work that I'm doing, which has felt really good to start kind of not knowing anything, but throughout each hitch and throughout each project, learning more about conservation and just about the world around me. That really got me interested in wanting to stay in ACE and become a crew lead.
That's awesome. I love that, especially coming into something brand new and just diving in head first. Jordy, how did you get involved with ACE?
I'd come back from a longer stint working and living in Australia and came back to the country, and tough job market at that point. I mean, it still is, but looking around, and I'd studied Parks and Rec management and natural resources management. So I went back to my college to a job fair and met some member management people at ACE, and they told me about it. I'd done trail work before and other conservation work for volunteer smaller organizations. So when I met them and learned that you could get paid to do it, I was super keen on that. So I came in, I think February 2023. Came as a crew member. About a month into it, jumped up to ATL and got a lot of more hands-on experience teaching and stuff like that, which is one of my favorite aspects. Probably a couple months later down the road, became a crew lead, and just recently just got promoted to be a project manager. So kind of moved all the way up the ladder and really enjoyed every part of it.
Congratulations on your new position as project manager.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm really excited for our Asheville office to have someone with such great wealth and knowledge to help be a part of our team. So Jordy touched briefly on this, and I kind of want to just start out with a very kind of basic question, but what do crew leaders do? Jordy alluded to the teaching aspect of being a crew leader. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on what crew leaders do?
Yeah, absolutely. Crew leaders, they do a whole variety of things, and it varies project to project. So I generally have worked trails projects and chainsaw projects mostly. A lot of or decent amount of backcountry work and more hiking oriented projects. So a lot of the job is making sure people do things safely. When you're accountable for 5 to 8 people, keeping tabs on making sure people are wearing like their PPE and using tools in a way where they won't injure their body, whether it's like a short term or a long term thing, because it is physical labor that does put a toll on people. So making sure people are safe with that. There's also the teaching aspect. Here at ACE, we're take people from all different experience levels. A lot of people come in with this being their first intro to conservation work. So getting people comfortable with using hand tools, comfortable with using power tools, decent understanding on like the philosophy of trails and why we do the things we do. And then as well as that, just keeping spirits up. So camp life is super important, making sure people are as comfortable as they can be given the resources and in a position where they're excited to be able to work rather than dreading the next day.
I can add to that as well. I think, like Jordy said, everything that is true. I think also you're kind of preparing a group of members of people to go out on a hitch, like Elyse said, 8 days out in the field working on some kind of project. So breaking it down even more, it's like, you know, the day before you leave, you pack up all the things you need, like those hand tools, the power tools. You're making sure you have that camp equipment. And, you get help with that with like your ATL. At least that's how we do it, is like the ATLs, they help you a lot with preparing for the hitch. And then, yeah, once you go out, depending on what you're doing, what kind of project it is. This summer, I had kind of a longer hitch. It was over a month long in Yosemite. It was an invasive management project, and we did a bunch of things. There were a bunch of species, a bunch of plants that we were targeting in different ways. So that could be like through herbicide or through manual removal, just like pulling the plants out or using hand tools. But yeah, there's also one of the reasons that I wanted to do this position was because I had such kind of a life-changing experience coming to ACE, like discovering all that there is to do, like outside every day, like working outside and taking care of the land and doing something that feels good, which like a lot of people don't have that opportunity, which I think is really special. But, it's American Conservation Experience, so it's an experience for the members to kind of grow and figure out what they want to do further down the line. So I like that part of my job a lot, is like pushing people to go on to the next thing and like look for what's next for themselves and just also enjoy like the work that we're able to do and all the beautiful places that we're able to go to and see, because it's pretty special and unique, I would say, for most people.
I think everything you both said illustrates so well that there is no one way to arrive at a conservation corps. But if there's one thing I think that just seems so prevalent in everyone who experiences a conservation corps, it's something you said, Lily, but I think you both alluded to. It's life changing, and that is something I never get tired of hearing. Never.
Yeah, I hear that all the time for members. People crazy like getting people on one of their first hitches and the structure here is you sign them for a certain amount of time. So some people sign them for like up to 9 months here. So you can see a lot of growth in someone in that period, and getting someone on their first hitch and this is just completely new to them. Some people have never even held a shovel, used a shovel. I've had people who haven't even seen a campfire, and being able to experience that with them is super rewarding. But seeing them at the end and getting to that point where you're saying goodbye with them, the words people have to say about how this has changed them and how this is showing them something, showing them a point that they want to jump off into something else is just super rewarding.
Yeah, I had this one member and it was his last hitch and we were doing a check-in and I was like asking him, what did you take away from this or something along those lines? And he told me, Lily, have you ever seen on YouTube those videos of monkeys being released into the wild? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, that's how I felt once I started to get into ACE. Like, I felt like I was finally seeing the world as it really is and like how I'm supposed to be. And it made me laugh because he was a funny guy, but also I was like, wow, like that's kind of beautiful that this opened your eyes to so many things and you have a different view of the world now. So I like those moments.
That I'd argue those are probably some of my favorite moments. I don't want to call it a consequence, but that like phrase of just like the unexpected, like, oh, I didn't like for you, Lily, because especially it changed your life and not really you just signing up on a whim and being like, all right, let's see what happens with this. And 3 months in, you're like, oh, wait, this is my life now. This is what I want to do. I think there's very little things that I have found that really have that profound impact on people in the way that the work of conservation and preserving our natural resources does for people, which I don't think a lot of people know that if they don't experience that firsthand.
Yeah, it's definitely the most rewarding job I've been in as far as just the gratification of doing the work you do, especially being in trail work. You can see a solid outcome for everything you do, and that's super helpful for the crews, keeping people motivated. But being able to spend a week long just chiseling this rock. We've got these big rock drills where you put chisel on the end and you just chisel out stairs. It takes hours and people rotate in shifts, and it can be a little exhausting, but being able to look back and see the full staircase that y'all just made and seeing the people hike on those brand new stairs as you're just finishing making them, people thanking you for doing what you're doing. And it's unlike any other job I've had. You're so in tune with what you're doing that it's just really grounding.
So Jordy, like you mentioned, a day in the life of a crew member and crew leader is building a staircase in the middle of nowhere. I know different projects, different areas, but in a general sense, what does that look like?
Yeah, projects out here, it's kind of hard to do a day in the life because they're super varied. Ecosystems on the East Coast can be anything from a swamp that's 100 degrees, completely human, covered in bugs, to some nice higher alpine mountains. So things can go all kinds of directions. But just for an example, I'll talk about the Great Smokies. I was fortunate enough to be out there for about 2.5 months over the summer on a backcountry project. We were up on Mount LeConte, which is about, I think, 6,300 feet. Might be wrong on that. We were tasked with restoring Bullhead Trail. It's one of 4 trails that goes up to the top of the mountain there. We were camping out up top, and every day we'd walk down and push that trail further and further into getting it restored. Bullhead Trail was built, I believe, in the 30s by the Civilian Conservation Corps. I learned from our project partner, hasn't had any work done to it since. So we were doing some much needed restoration work and getting it back up to a par with safety. But yeah, day in the life for that project, we would wake up anytime between 5 and 6:30. I was generally an earlier riser and would walk out to see the sunrise every morning. A few other crew members here and there would come as well. But people would wake each other up, slowly rise. It was getting a little cold up there, so sometimes people can be a little reluctant to get out of their sleeping bag. But people would make breakfast. Breakfast is kind of an everyone for themselves kind of thing. We provide all the food, but certain projects it's easier for people to just make what they want. So people would make that, and then expectation was 7 o'clock. Everyone would meet up for a safety circle, and that would just look like talking about what we're doing for the day, talking about what could go wrong, what we can do to mitigate that, and what happens if something does go wrong. So we'll talk about people's medical experience, who will take the lead if something goes wrong, what our procedure is for either treatment or evacuating someone, but all with the mindset of we're hoping to do everything we can to prevent that from happening. But from there, we do a little stretch circle, go around, usually have a question of the day. Those can be all over the place. One of the most popular ones I remember was building a cryptid. So everyone would go around, they'd give a stretch, everyone would do the stretch, and then they'd add a piece to the cryptid. So someone would say it's got tiny little legs and it makes little xylophone sound as it's walking. And it's attracted to the sound of power equipment if we're running chainsaws and stuff like that. But that's kind of just a point to talk with the crew, take it easy a little bit, get warmed up before we're getting into the work. But usually days up there, we'd start at least once a week, we'd go and pick up the mule load. So because we were so remote, we had mule teams bringing up our food, all of our perishable supplies, and then all of our tools. So we'd go and pick up our supplies for the week, bring them back to our camp, and then start hiking down the mountain. And tasks up there on Mount LeConte were pretty varied. So a task for the day could be simple as we've got to move this giant rock out of the trail. There's a large rock and the mules can't walk around the rock and they can't go over the rock. So we got to move the rock. And it can just be that simple of spending all day trying to move this massive boulder off the trail. They can also be things like making drains. Up in the Smokies, it's super important to have good drain work. They get super high amounts of rain every year. I think it might be the only temperate rainforest in America, or it's the continental United States. So they get tons of rain, and if you don't do anything about that, it'll just rut out the trail, make these giant mud pits, or in some instances, the whole trail just collapses down the side of the mountain. So doing drain work, making better footing, whether that's carving stone steps, making wood steps, or just tread work, getting some big rocks out of the way. And yeah, we take 3 breaks through the day. We have a generally 15-minute break at around 10 o'clock, 30-minute at lunchtime, and another 15 at 3. And that's time where people recoup and usually get carried away playing some sort of trail game and then get back to work. But end of the day, it's one of the least fun parts of the day because at least on that project, we hike down in the morning. So the further we push it, the more we have to hike up and out at the end of the day. And everyone's exhausted. Everyone's ready to be done. And on that project, we didn't have a shower to look forward to. So,
Oof,
yeah,
that sounds
Yeah.
smelly.
It was smelly, but there's a certain thing that happens where if everyone smells, it doesn't get that bad, especially when you're basically around each other all day, every day. We were sleeping in a Appalachian Trail shelter, so basically a bunch of bunk beds. But yeah, in that instance, for backcountry, our food options are a little different than you'd have on a front country project. So we were mostly on freeze-dried food and non-perishable stuff that was brought up on the mule teams. So usually 1 to 2 people would get together, cook for everyone in the evenings, sit down and all have dinner together, and then take turns doing the dishes afterwards. But yeah, basically every night on that project, we go out and watch the sunset. There's many options because we were on the top of this mountain. You just go out to any given rocky outcropping and you've got basically a 360 view of the Smokies. It was amazing to basically live out there for as long as they let me. And yeah, and then go to bed, wake up, do it all over again.
Hey, yo, that does not sound like a bad day to live your life. Awesome. Thank you for painting that picture of what it's like to be on a backcountry hitch. We also, in a previous episode, we kind of took a deeper dive into backcountry and what those projects looks like. And honestly, it sounds magical to wake up. I'm also an early riser. I'm a sunrise girl over a sunset, but to be able to experience both of them literally in the Smokies, twist my arm. You couldn't pay me enough to not do that job. Like, yes, I would sign up over and over again to be able to do that. That sounds beautiful. And it's also to what you said earlier, Jordy, I can imagine on that project specifically, looking back, even though, yes, you had to hike up the trail to get back home every day, but being able to see the transformation that you had on that trail as you're using it and walking it and experiencing it, I think for me sounds like one of the most rewarding aspects of being on a crew. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. That trail specifically was super evident to see what benefit you brought there. It was pretty far gone with it having not been maintained for a long time. So walking down, and we walk it basically every day, you'd be walking over boulders and slipping and sliding because it's wet out there and the rocks get covered in lichen and then get really bad. So being able to just go from watching your step almost every step to walking back home at the end of the day and it being nice, solid, flat ground is super great feeling. But it was also great to see that trail was the trail that the mules used to bring our supplies up. And they've historically used that trail for a long time to bring supplies up for crews up there. And certain days we'd be on the trail by the time the mules would come up. So you'd see them walking up and you could almost feel their relief as the trail got better because you could see them struggling trying to get over some of those boulders at the beginning. And then their lights got a little easier and easier as the project went on.
Wow. So we don't even have an impact, not just on humans, but also mules and other animals. That's cool. That I think I would love I love animals. I would love to see that like transformation, not just of a human, but also maybe a mule of like, hey, thanks guys for building this for me.
Yeah, we appreciate them and they appreciate us.
I feel it's always nice, like, when there are mules that pass through to watch them to see if you had to redirect the trail in any way, to see where they walk, to see if they, like, use what you just made or if you still need to kinda tweak something, and it's kinda like the test of, did we do it good enough if the mules will walk on it?
But yeah, I totally agree. Using the mules as a gauge on your work, and you can use people too, like making a staircase specifically. When you're starting to make it and it's not the most convenient option, people generally want to go with like the easiest path that they see. So when you're starting working on it, you'll see people going around and then you're starting to get somewhere good when people start to use your stairs.
Yeah.
And then eventually you'll get to the point where everyone's using the stairs. And then that's when you know you've got decent staircase.
A good trail builder has to get inside the user's head, the hiker's head.
Yeah.
Yeah, inside the hiker's head and inside the water's head as well, especially in the Smokies. It's a lot of reading the water, and because of the rain out there, it's nice to be able to see where it's going. So you'll make a drain one day, end of the day, come back the next morning, it rained overnight, and you'll see the paths of where the water went. And it's a good way to see that your drain's working and where you might need some more drainage options.
Can either of you take a hike without thinking about trail building? And did it ruin hiking for you?
Definitely not ruin hiking for me, but I cannot hike without being a little judgmental on some of the trail features.
Yeah, same. I always like to appreciate the work that others have done there, because it's hard, like, spending a whole day, like, moving a rock out of a trail or spending a whole day trying to set one stone in as a step. You take it out what seems like a billion times and put it back in, make sure it's not wiggling around. It takes a lot of time and a lot of frustration, and so when you see something good or when you produce something good, especially in the backcountry where you don't have access to like power tools, it's like you did that all with your hands and it took you like a day for like one part of a bigger project. So it's nice to look at.
Yeah. And you don't realize until you do it how much effort and skill and thought goes into a lot of these features on the trail. Before we're doing this professionally, you'd hike up and you'd see this crazy staircase going through this rock arch and kind of just assume that like it's always been there or someone so long ago made it that you don't really need to think about it. But meeting the people who put that stuff together and then doing it yourself really gives you an appreciation of this was something people thought about before, took maybe 5 people moving this stuff and a lot of strength and willpower to get this in the place that it is and in a place where it can last for decades.
Yeah, I think that's part of the transformation piece that I think a lot of us see in the field is, yes, that is hard, grueling labor, but, it's also beautiful, like, mental growth, not just physical growth, which, again, if you can't tell, is my favorite aspect of conservation. And obviously saving the planet and protecting the planet and preserving the planet, yes, and also protecting and preserving us as humans and kind of what makes us, and help appreciate that just a little bit more. I know now when I walk on trails or go out in backcountry, I recognize that if they had to chop a log, that was with the crosscut saw. That wasn't with the chainsaw on some lands, right? They had to physically like use that no motorized equipment. And that's something that I always, even as I've been hiking for decades now, I still think about that and still have that fine moment of appreciation for those humans who did that one time, whether it was 5 years ago or 50 years ago.
Just want to circle back on the Bullhead Trail. I mentioned it was made by the Civilian Conservation Corps way back in the day. On the trail, we were digging drain sections, and every once in a while you'd come across sort of a retaining wall that's been buried underground on the side of the trail that originally was built there to support the trail being banked into the mountain. And those are long past artifacts of the CCC, and it's really cool working on that same trail and coming across the work of someone doing the same job as you were almost 100 years ago and using similar techniques and looking at their techniques and seeing how the philosophies have changed and grown over time. It's just a really cool experience.
I have a parallel to this conversation of transformation. One of the projects that we do here in Ridgecrest, on BLM Ridgecrest, so we work with the Bureau of Land Management, and we work most of the time in a limited use area. And so in this area, people go and recreate like with UTVs and motorcycles, trucks, and it's something that they love. Like they drive around and they have fun driving around on these roads, but in this certain area it's limited use, so they have to stay on these roads, which doesn't always happen. Like people stray off of the designated routes, and then those trails that they created become like what seems like the road, but it's not. And it's not for a reason, because this land is limited use. Like where we work a lot of the time are where the desert tortoise live and the Mojave ground squirrel live. And so what we do is we do restoration. So if there are illegal routes that are compacted, we do a bunch of restoration efforts, but we decompact dirt, which is basically like you're taking a dirt road and you're using picks and you're using McLeods to try to break up this dirt and basically have it become what it once was, which is kind of not necessarily like sand, like loose sand, but a lot softer. You step on it and your foot kind of sinks into the ground a little bit. And there are burrows. Like sometimes you walk around and you accidentally step on one and you cave in like a few inches down to the ground. But, we're taking this road, we're decompacting the dirt, and then we do this process called vertical mulching, where we take branches from dead creosote bushes and we basically like dig holes and recreate a creosote bush to try to deter people, like visually, like they can't see that road anymore because of these like fake bushes that we create, but also like a physical barrier, like they can't go continue down this road anymore. And then once we do the actual restoration, we go back like year after year. BLM has us go back out there and monitor these sites where we've done the work and see if there's new growth, like if there's new plants growing. Are there burrows there now from animals that are living there? And it's really cool to see like sites that we worked on and going back and seeing, is this working? Like, is there new growth? Are animals able to live here now? How is the land doing? And that's kind of, you can't see it right then and there necessarily. Like when you build like a staircase, like boom, you see it. But it takes years for plants to grow. But that's one thing I've had the privilege of, is going back to a project year after year, is seeing how the land has changed and if the work that we're doing does really help, and what does that work really do? How does it look year after year? So I think that's a cool thing to see and be a part of.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Well, to learn the land and to be able to help guide the land back Obviously not to its original roots because there's no way that we could do that, but to help loosen that ground and not make it as compact and create better habitat for other species to thrive in. Like you said, it's not a stairwell, so you don't just turn around and poof, there's a new plant, or poof, it's perfect. But going back year after year and knowing that a lot of projects are those types of projects where crews go back year after year because it's not just a one and done, like, great, okay, we did that. You have to go back year after year. And especially if you're fortunate enough, like Lily has been, to be able to go back and be on those same projects. That's another beautiful transformation that, is not a lot of people get to witness or experience, like kind of the natural world growing and moving and adapting,
Yeah.
which is beautiful.
And I think that's what can be tough for members in projects like those. Is like, I mean, for one, they're working in the Mojave Desert. So, like, if it's not fall or winter, it's hot. I mean, it's hot now. Like, yesterday we were working and it was probably, like, the thermometer probably said 78 or something, but in that heat, it feels a lot hotter. And so, like, people are walking around just, like, picking up sticks. Like, you have your arms full of literally just sticks, and, like, you're doing this all day for 10 hours. And so that's one thing that is a part of this job and a part of the life of people that do this is like, okay, I don't see exactly how my work is impacting this land right now, but there's other evidence. Like, if I've gone and monitored a site that someone has done 5 years ago, okay, someone 5 years from now is going to see what I'm doing. It's mentally challenging to not be able to see right there what you're doing, especially in that heat, especially when you've been working for 10 hours a day doing this stuff. It's really tough. So I commend the members a lot and everyone for doing that kind of stuff because it's hard. And at times you don't want to do it anymore. You're like, oh my God, I can't pick up another stick today. Like, this is crazy. But then you kind of have to come back to, okay, this is for the greater good. This is protecting habitat. This is important what I'm doing. And I guess that goes for everyone in life, whatever they're working on or working towards. But the mental part of ACE and conservation and working through mental blocks, that is a part of this experience that I think is very valuable. And those members that are able to work 8 days, 10 hours a day in the Mojave Desert when it's hot, and they come out of that and they're like, wow, like, I really just did that. I can probably do a lot more too. So it's pretty cool.
And for a fact they will not forget that experience.
Yeah, not to mention the wind. I mean, it gets so windy when we sleep. If you go out to use the bathroom at night, you will see people's tents like collapsing. And so it's like, oh my God, I got like 5 hours of horrible sleep last night, and now I have to go and pick up sticks. It's hard. It's tough work.
But it's worth it, though. But it's worth it, right? Like, I feel like if you're a person that likes instant gratification, conservation might be a good tool to help flip that script for you, to not
Yeah.
be so reliant or wanting that instant gratification, and knowing that there is beautiful strength in that, what I call delayed gratification, right? Where you go back year after year, or even you go once and then maybe that member is back in that region 5-10 years later, and then they can share that story, like, oh yeah, this area right here, this used to be covered with sticks and now it is not because of me. And I think that's powerful. Even
Yeah.
as simple as picking up sticks can be, it is very impactful for the land, and I think for the person as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Lily and Jordy, both of you. One last question that Dave and I like to ask our guests on this podcast is, how do you see conservation in 50 years? What does conservation look like to you in 50 years? Let's start with Jordy.
Yeah. So over the last 50 years, conservation has come massively as far as technology, our understanding of what we're trying to achieve and the techniques we use to get there. So I think it's going to continue expanding and growing as far as the technological side and our understanding of how to best implement it. But I also think it's going to keep growing as far as people getting involved. More people are engaged in recreational activities these days than almost any time in history. And through that, people gain the appreciation of seeing these places and what goes into them and stopping to think about people working to maintain and keep these places that we all love and keep going back to. So I think it's going to grow as far as people getting involved, but I also think that we're going to get better at implementing the practices to keep conservation alive.
Thank you so much, Jordy. That's a great answer. Lily, what about you? How do you see conservation in 50 years?
I think that a lot of the things that we're doing now will still be doing in 50 years, like maintaining trails. We always need people out there in the backcountry, getting out there and keeping things walkable. But I think my hope is that just education in general, I hope that as time goes on, people will understand their impact as humans and have more of a curiosity about the places that they're going to. And that goes for not only like individuals, but, how corporations are impacting the environment. I think that everyone wants to or cares about the land and wants to see it do well. So I hope that that just can continue.
I hope I can continue too, honestly. I really do. Thank you again, both Lily, Jordy, and Dave, for your contributions and just chatting with us today. I know I learned a little bit more about what it's like to be a crew leader and what it's like to serve on our conservation crews here at American Conservation Experience. Thank you all so much for listening. Really appreciate your support, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Also, be sure to check out our website at usaconservation.org. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you'll continue to be part of our journey as we go behind the scenes with the dedicated individuals working tirelessly to protect and preserve our natural wonders.